You gotta love OAN. This is Dan. I don't know who's Dan. Do we know Dan's last name? Dan, he's just Dan 1-on-1. We'll call him Dan 1-on-1. I wish I cared. I wish I gave a shit about who these guys are in actuality. But he has on a guy from Newsweek, Fred Guttural. It just feels like there's a missing vowel there, but maybe not. All right. And this is them trying to like buck up to the real news zone, and I'm fascinated to see what happens.
Welcome back. Well, as we all know, President Donald J. Trump lives, as I like to say, rent-free in the corporate media's minds all the time. When he was in office, they never hesitated to say everything and anything bad about the man they could. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad to say. So, I mean, it was kind of laziness on their part. I mean, you could pretty much go for days on end, and he was just constantly pumping out just miles and miles of excrement that you could just smear on the walls of your newspaper.
What I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
No matter what it was, Orange Man bad.
Oh, I see. Right. So it's a pathological thing to be disgusted by his behavior, to think he's a fool, to think that he was lying, I don't know, about Chinese transparency around the virus early on, and then selling them all of our beef, corn, and soybeans while Americans were in food lines during a pandemic. Yeah, Orange Man bad. Yes, absolutely.
His tweets are so mean. Boo frickin' who. We had a great
Excuse me, it's boo fuckity who, and I coined that. Get in line.
economy. Everybody was working.
No, they weren't. As a matter of fact, we were hit with a pandemic, and he ignored every sign. He mismanaged it horribly. He'd gotten rid of the pandemic response team, which would have been his front line against it. It destroyed, I mean, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of small businesses went away and are never coming back.
Strong military. Borders were secure. Got a problem with tweets? Got a problem with a bad or foul word here or there? Don't watch this.
A bad or foul word?
This program then.
Are you going to... So frickety? You're going to say frickety, Dan?
Now, back when he was in the Oval Office.
The Oval Office, which is different than the Oval Office. It's lower. It's underneath the Oval Office is the Loval Office, just in case you were wondering.
It was a Newsweek headline. It read this.
Most Americans call Trump's coronavirus pandemic response terrible or bad. Yeah. Yes, and by the way, still stands up.
Yes. Most Americans call Trump's coronavirus pandemic response terrible or bad.
Yeah, but then, did they really try? Did they really drink bleach and shove a light bulb up their ass? Maybe it would have worked.
Poll finds. I don't trust polls. We know what happened in 2016 when it comes to polls, so.
Yeah, he lost the popular vote by 3 million. Basically, all the polls were right. The only difference was about 75,000 votes in 3 different states. It's an electoral college win.
You know where you can stick that poll. Anyway, according to Newsweek, Atlas Intel interviewed more than 1,700 participants between October 26th and the 28th in 2020. 52% claimed again that his response was terrible or bad. 48% terrible and 5% saying bad. Meanwhile, 21% said good and 25% said excellent. Publishing this was all part of the narrative to place doubt in Trump's handling of the pandemic. Again,
yes, his handling of the pandemic, his manhandling, I would even say.
1,700 people in a country of 325 million. Okay?
Okay. So you're calling bullshit on Rasmussen then?
But they got rid of him, right? Yeah, that is if the election was legit. Still a lot of questions there.
No, there weren't any. I mean, he has questions because he's like, how the fuck did I lose to Joe Biden after I made up this story about him being, can we go back and just watch the debates again? He mops the floor with Trump as Trump is a sweaty, blathering mess.
Now, facts about COVID are starting to come to the surface. Things that, President Trump said back in February, March, April, May, throughout the summer.
Oh, did he? Did he say that they came from the lab or just that they came from that part of China? Because if I recall, the entire world knows that Wuhan was where the disease came from. and the China shut down the Hebei province, trying to stop people from moving out of there. And we all watched as it happened. And he never claimed it came from the lab. He never claimed this is them rewriting history, by the way. There's a shit ton of this happening right now where Trump's going, I was right about the whole thing. They said I was wrong. Everybody knew geographically where it came from. We all knew this. Is there anybody who didn't know that Wuhan was the center point for where the disease came from? Nobody. The question was, did it come from a lab or the wet market? And was it intentional or accidental? That's the question that remains open. Looked into. Now, Trump is, I guess, now leaning towards it came from the lab, and he is now alleging that that's what he said all along. Nowhere did he say that last year. I honestly, find it. Where did he go? It came from a lab in China, and they attacked us with it. Anytime, like, before he lost the election. It didn't happen. Just because you know where it came from geographically, like the rest of us, does not mean that you were right all along about it coming from that lab or it being released into the wet market. And the idea that, by the way, if you spend any time in China, you know it's entirely plausible that people who took bats from one of the other provinces, did tests on them, and had them, and then they usually either kill them, incinerate them, or something, that somebody there took them to the wet market and sold them, is entirely plausible in how China works. Like, that's entirely, that is a reasonable possibility. And that's lazy leak, but it's also not on purpose. We'll see. I want to see if they go where he wants them to go, which was, it was on purpose, which, by the way, makes him look worse. Yeah, he said it was from China. I don't even know that he was as specific about Wuhan. Right.
That newspapers and the left and Democrats said, no way. Because if he said yes, they said no.
He didn't say yes or no about this. I don't know what you're talking about. Neither does he.
So now, the participants who maybe voted in that poll, right? Maybe they'd have voted differently at the election box if they'd have known a few
the good old election box.
Different things, like maybe Dr. Fauci's emails, which we've now...
Oh, you mean the ones we already went through that are obviously him learning about it as we went, and then eventually by March, April, they're saying, yeah, we got to lock down. But the early part of it is it's not here enough to cascade through the entire system. You don't need a mask to go to the airport right now. And then later on you did because it spread. Kind of like you don't need a raincoat if you live in Alabama, let's just say, and there's a hurricane coming through Florida, and then the weather turns and another one builds in the Gulf, and then now you do. But you told me I didn't need one because you said it was over there. What? You were obviously lying. The weatherman was lying yesterday before we had a hurricane here.
We've now seen thousands of pages of those.
You have not. There is no way Dan, what's his name, went through. Dan, what's his name? Dan Ball, of course. One. Danny Balls. There's no way Danny Balls went through all of Fauci's emails.
We know for a fact, Scripps Institute researcher Christian Anderson.
What is he researching?
Emailed Fauci, saying, right here it is in black and white, that, you know, the virus looks potentially engineered.
Yeah, out of tens of thousands of emails, and he's like, hey, thanks for calling. Bye. Click. Yeah.
This was
thanks, QAnon.
Early.
Was that guy a virologist? was he a epidemiologist? No, he's a physicist, Trump supporter. Okay.
Last year, folks. We're talking January, February timeframe. Mm-hmm. So with all of that said, have you...
Wait, and by the way, where did he get the genome from? All right, China posted the genome of the virus in January. Thank you, Lee.
Noticed how just recently in the last few weeks, big smile, the mainstream media is now singing a new tune, actually doing stories that discuss hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, and that it only helps if you were never going to go to the hospital in the first place. It has the same efficacy of I had a slice of apple pie.
Actually doing stories that say the virus maybe came from a lab in Wuhan, in China.
And Trump never made that assertion.
China. Whoa, big news.
Yeah, Trump never said that. Trump said they were being very transparent. and that she was doing everything he could, and he was being very professional. That was the word he used a lot.
Joining me now, a reporter who's actually been questioning the origins of COVID for quite some time now. He's a special projects editor with Newsweek. Believe it or not, Fred.
I'll have to take your word for it. I mean, I normally don't, but go ahead.
Goodwill. Fred, I appreciate you coming on One America News. Most journalists in the mainstream corporate arena probably would not want to come on this program or this network.
Yeah, I mean, mainly he's just got a lot of free time. He's a print journalist. Everybody else has shit to do.
So first off,
he's obviously spending time in his cabin on break.
I'll tip my hat to you and say thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
The second thing I'm going to say to you, welcome, is you work for a paper that last year and up until recently, minus a couple of your reports, threw Trump under the bus for everything he said about COVID. So how the heck do we explain that one? Because
everything he said about COVID was complete horseshit.
Now a lot of the stuff.
And by the way, I have no knowledge of whether or not Danny Balls has a light bulb up his ass right this moment and is free of COVID. That is entirely possible.
Stuff is coming out from the Fauci emails to the origin to wearing masks to hydroxychloroquine actually working. I know I took it when I actually had COVID. It works.
No, that's not how it works. You're not in the age range where it's most dangerous. You probably were an asymptomatic carrier or a minor symptom carrier. It's not topical.
So why the big change? Why the big switch at Newsweek compared to a year ago when Orange Man bad?
Well, I'm not sure you're characterizing Newsweek's coverage fairly
I got headlines. We'll get to them in a second. Yes, I am. But go ahead.
Right.
I'll shut up. You speak.
That's which should be the name of his show.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Trump did not handle the outbreak very well. So I think there was a lot of legitimate criticism.
And what do you base that on, Fred? What do you base that on? Like shutting
600,000 people dead
down China and being called a xenophobic and racist?
Shutting down China? I mean, do we have to pull up the whole, it was a sieve that rich Chinese people who went to our meatpacking plants, they were allowed to come in. Business people, that kind of stuff. Just anybody who wasn't a resident. Yeah.
Racist for shutting travel to China, which stopped the spread because that's where it was coming from. Remember that one?
Well,
Nancy Pelosi, Biden, they all called him, and so did the media. Okay, and Twitter let those tweets up. We called him racist and xenophobic. But go ahead.
Well, Biden said his response as a person was xenophobic. Not that that particular one was, but they were concerned is that he would just basically shut off travel to the average Chinese person and go, that should cover it. It's really just about dirty Chinese people bringing in poor Chinese people that enter the country and bring disease. That I think would qualify as racism and xenophobia, especially if you're letting the rich ones in and you're just going, obviously there's the rabble.
Go ahead, keep going.
Well, I think the death toll has been pretty bad.
Okay, I got to interject. How do we know that death toll is accurate at 586,000? How many hospitals have come out now and health organizations and departments and said the reporting's inaccurate? One county.
If I may, can I please? Yeah. U.S. undercounting COVID deaths. May 6th, 2021. Okay, cool. I mean, basically, we'll move on. But please, Danny Balls.
County in California said 25 to 30% inaccurate. So you died with or you died from. The died with, meaning you died from something else, is on the total. That means.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have died with it. That's what pushed you over the edge. That's what killed you. You know what I mean? It's like you were shot and then hit by a car. And you were dragged by the car several miles. Technically, you weren't that. We can't call that a gun death. But You might not have staggered into traffic and gotten hit by the car in the first place if you didn't have a bullet in your gut. You see where I'm going?
That means 586,000 did not die from COVID, okay? They had other comorbidities.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
The death count has been underestimated, if anything.
No. Okay, I'll let you speak.
No, that's just what the study.
Where's your proof for that? Where's the study that shows that?
I have a bunch. Becker Hospital Review, NPR, let's see, CDC, the Boston University, Stat News.
Yeah, I have it right here in my back pocket.
Okay, keep going.
I just do some research on it. That's what the studies say.
Okay.
I can't cite them chapter and verse for you.
He's by the way, that's he's having adrenochrome right now. Just for the record.
Okay.
Apparently he's got a tin spittoon he sits his drink in.
So your new article that you wrote, you're actually now, Fred, questioning where the pandemic came from. You're actually getting to, and you actually questioned it last year too. So
right, yeah, a bunch of people did. Yeah, there was no moratorium on talking about where it came from. It was calling it Kung Flu and shit like that that was awful, and attacking Asian Americans in general about something that would happen in the country of China, as opposed to the Chinese as a national origin, Chinese as an ethnic group, and you not wanting to make that distinction and being fine with people being attacked.
So about a year apart, you're starting to, and Newsweek is starting to say maybe it came from a lab, right?
A year apart?
We're finally saying this.
Well, we said it a long time ago. We said it in my story came out in April 2020, and it was highly.
Excuse me, that makes it 4/27/20. Controversial experiment lab suspected of starting the coronavirus pandemic. Apparently, and our buddy Naveed Jamali's on there. Oh, great! Look at that at Newsweek. He's the editor over there as well. We love Naveed. Hi. This was all last year. Trump didn't bring this up. But.
Highly speculative, which is one reason why it wasn't picked up, because I think reporters are reluctant to speculate, and there's no proof, but it seemed to me, I mean, I had done some reporting on gain of function research on the kind of issues that arise.
Sorry. Clank.
And with that kind of work in labs before. So I knew about it, and I was thinking about it, and I wondered, if that could explain this. And what I found was that there was some circumstantial evidence that suggested that it could explain the origin of the pandemic. Now,
and he said it in April of last year. Trump didn't.
Now, the thing is, it's been more than a year later now. We still don't know the answer to that question. We don't know that it came from a lab. Right. In fact,
does it concern you that one of Mr. Fauci's good friends, a virologist, in that email back in January of last year, said that her looking at the makeup of it, it appears to be engineered?
That wasn't a friend. That was a Trump supporter who emailed him.
You saw those emails, right? You read the emails.
Yeah, no, I did, and it's hard. Okay. I think I can't get into the minds of Fauci and his people, but and it's hard to know. You're reading emails that are redacted. It's hard to know what actually went on. I don't think it's a surprise that there are some features of the virus that suggest that it might have been engineered. That's been a feature all along of the reporting. I think I don't know. So the question is, why didn't they say so back then? And you'd have to ask them. I mean, You'd
also have to ask why Trump, who was next in line to Fauci, was having daily meetings with him, according to all this stuff, never was able to find this out from his own people. It never came up. It was never addressed. He never, broached that question himself. It never occurred to him in day after day after day of the task force meetings, right? That why Trump never asked them about it. Like, where did this come from? How is it possible? Is it possible this was created in a lab? Has anybody contacted any of you guys under penalty of anti-patriotic behavior? have you in any way been told that this might be created in some way? And Trump never asked that, never brought it up, never in those meetings, never in the top level meetings with all the information, never asked for it. Never. Oh, right, he was trying to get a trade deal signed and he was blowing it off in 14 cases and it was going to be nothing and who gives a shit?
Yeah, I wonder. That poses a pretty big question, Fred. Why wouldn't they say so back then? It was an election year.
Well, it was.
So, what would that have done in terms of, I mean, honest to God, how would that have affected Democratic? The Trump administration had gutted the pandemic response team, gotten rid of it, and then we were hit with a bioweapon on purpose, right? That's the theory. That's what he's pushing.
It was highly politicized.
See, we agreed on something. I knew we'd find something we agreed on. COVID was highly politicized. We can both agree on that.
Yes, and part of the blame for that falls on President Trump because he.
How so?
Well, because there's a long history of racist attitudes in America toward Chinese, and I think that Trump tapped into some of those, and I think there was a reluctance to jump on.
So Trump being racist towards Chinese and using racism towards Chinese is why it was mishandled? Are you trying to connect those dots?
I'm not saying it's the reason. I'm saying it created a barrier to actually looking at it in a fact-based way.
Constant misreporting by the mainstream media, you don't think had anything to do with it? The media didn't help politicize the left's take on how Trump was handling it? I got some headlines here from your paper. By the way, let's go over them real quick.
Let's do it. Here we go. Danny Balls.
This one's from 8/7/20. Trump accuses
8/7. So August. This guy's first article's April, saying it could have possibly, speculating on whether it could have come from the lab. Our buddy Naveed Jamali's on there. He's regular on MSNBC at that point. After we've been through this is August. People are dying, hundreds of thousands.
Accuses TikTok of spreading coronavirus conspiracy theories after claiming the virus came from the Wuhan lab. By that time, 4 months...
Trump accuses TikTok of spreading coronavirus conspiracy theories after claiming virus came from Wuhan lab. Trump, with his fingers on social media, regularly shares false information, including a claim this week that children are almost immune to the COVID-19 virus, a post that forced Facebook to act after months of reluctance to sanction the president. Huh? Accuses TikTok of spreading coronavirus conspiracy theories. After TikTok claimed the virus came from the Wuhan... What?
Months previous, Fred, you and your paper had already written stuff saying that it might come from a lab. So when Trump brings up...
Hold on. Hold on. Newsweek. Trump accuses TikTok of spreading... Okay. After, because I'm not clear on it. This is the article, by the way. After claiming the virus came from the Wuhan, he claimed it came from the Wuhan, or what? Okay, President Trump's executive order formalizing his threats against TikTok in the U.S. warned the app has been used to spread debunked conspiracy theories about COVID-19, despite his own long history in spreading mistruths about the virus. Executive order says TikTok collects huge amounts of data on users that can be provided to the Chinese Communist Party. It says it poses a threat to U.S. potential. Yes, TikTok is malware. We talked about this last year. TikTok may also be used for disinformation campaigns that benefit China, such as when TikTok videos spread debunked conspiracy theories about the origins of the novel coronavirus, the order says. Misinformation about the novel coronavirus swept across social media and Facebook singled out major source, but there was another. It was sitting inside the White House. In May, Trump claimed to have seen evidence the infectious disease be traced to a lab in Wuhan. Okay, so that's what this references. I don't know where it is. This is what it is. Whether China, made a mistake, or whether it started off as a mistake and then they made another one, or did somebody do something on purpose, he questioned in a White House briefing at the time. Seemingly flirting with a conspiracy in circulation that at times suggests disease could have been a type of bioweapon, which, by the way, makes him the worst president in American history if that turns out to be true. Trump was also asked about the source of the virus during a press conference the same month. The question said, have you seen anything at this point that gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of the virus? So it was being talked about. He replied, yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I think the World Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves because they're like the public relations agency for China. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. This is it then. Let's see.
John, go ahead. You said a moment ago you will soon have information on where this virus originated. The Director of National Intelligence today put out a statement saying that they believe it was naturally occurring, it was not man-made. But
who is that? Who is that that said that?
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Who in particular?
The guy who works under.
It was a statement that the ODNI.
Oh, he would know that, huh? National Intelligence. So we'll see.
That would be your Director of National Intelligence.
No, I think it's. I mean, you'd have to tell.
That's Rick Grinnell. Yeah, his own person, Trump's own person.
Who specifically? Who made the statement?
The statement was just put out under the Office of the ODNI.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, I have to see the statement. I just haven't seen it.
But the question I had was, have you seen anything at this point?
Because we're looking at that, John, separately from.
Correct. But
we're looking at exactly where it came from, who it came from, how it happened, separately and also scientifically. So we're going to be able to find it.
And my question is, have you seen anything?
By the way, he never found out during his presidency. Just stopped giving a shit.
That gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of this virus?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I think that the World Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves because they're like the public relations agency for China. And this country pays them almost $500 million a year, and China pays them $38 million a year. And whether it's a lot or more, it doesn't matter. It's still, they shouldn't be making excuses when people make horrible mistakes, especially mistakes that are causing hundreds of thousands of people
so it was a mistake then, all right,
around the world to die. I think the World Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves.
So they're the PR. So just so you know, let's see. Trump compliments China's handling of COVID. Let's just see I can spell COVID. Hold on. Let's just let's see. And we'll pick a video. Why not? Let's see. CNBC. There's this guy. Video. Is that actually loading an ad? That's an ad. I don't want that. Go back here.
This president doesn't want to own his own actions.
This is April 15th.
Gotcha. It's about getting to a better place.
The WHO willingly took China's assurances to face value, and they took it just at face value and defended the action
A lot of sniffing
of the Chinese government, even praising China for its so-called transparency.
What kind of an asshole would praise China's transparency during COVID?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Exactly.
Okay, 2 points. One, he refused to take what was offered to him as face value.
China's been working very hard to contain the coronavirus. The United States greatly appreciates their efforts in transparency. What?
It will all work out well. In particular, on behalf of the saying the same thing. Listen.
I spoke with President Xi, and they're working very, very hard, and I think it's going to all work out fine. I spoke with President Xi of China, and he's working very hard on this. So it's a tremendous problem.
Yeah,
But they're very capable, and
Thanks, Janine.
They'll get to it.
I think he's doing it very professionally. I know this. President Xi loves the people of China. He loves his country, and he's doing a very good job with a very, very tough situation.
Okay.
So that's the, let's see, there's got to be, is there more on this one? Yeah, speaking of moron, hold on.
Right now.
You're criticizing the WHO for praising China for being transparent, but you also praise China for being transparent.
I don't talk about China's transparency. Well, you know, if I'm so good to China, how come I was the only person, the only leader of a country that closed our borders tightly against China?
Not really an answer to the question, so give us a fact.
And by the way, he didn't actually close the borders to China anyways. Let's see, is he do they have more of him? No. Okay. So just to clarify this business, he accuses TikTok
that it might come from a lab. You guys call him out and say it's false information that he's spreading about children being pretty much immune to it. We now know that is a fact. Kids are pretty much
they're not pretty much immune
to it. And then you had another one about hydroxychloroquine that you guys did, 7/28/20. Trump retweets COVID misinformation deleted for violating their rules. I won't get into big tech with you because I don't know your opinion.
One tweet from the handle Sidney Powell 1 read, "Make hydroxychloroquine available over the counter. It will prevent and stop it for next to nothing. This is all outrageous and needlessly destructive. All of America should be open now."
Nor does it matter on the show today about what big tech did, but
Okay, hold on. I obviously hydroxychloroquine. It's a wonderful little thing. It's yeah. Just do this. Here you go. This is a day ago, so this is new. Whatever. Okay. Fox News and Trump are still pushing hydroxychloroquine. Here's what the data shows. The rapid decline of the coronavirus in an increasingly vaccinated American public has allowed us all to focus on other related but formerly less pressing things. High on that list thus far has been whether scientists and the media were too anxious to dismiss the lab leak theory, a valid debate with real implications. I don't know that they were dismissing it. Again, this is if you find someone with a bullet wound, do you treat the wound and get them to the hospital, or you go, hang on, lay there bleeding, I'm going to go look for the shooter, right? But also pretty high on the list, rising for a small but passionate number of people, is the hydroxychloroquine. There was a study that came out that said that hydroxychloroquine actually helped people survive. Fox News' Steve Doocy said Monday morning, and of course, that was one of the things Donald Trump came out and said. I've heard good things about it. Next thing you know, Fauci was standing right over, blows him up, the left wing explodes. Bartiromo made a similar case. Ron Johnson, Trump himself recently listed they are now admitting I was right about that hydroxychloroquine works. Reality, as with many of Trump's such claims and even his momentary advocacy for the lab leak theory last year, is far less cut and dried. New claims rest on a preliminary study from an early advocate for hydroxychloroquine that has been criticized by other experts. It doesn't exactly say what proponents suggest. The study, let's see what this, we'll open this up as a separate thing, was released a few weeks ago by infectious disease researchers in New Jersey. The researchers studied 255 patients at St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey during the early months of the pandemic. They concluded that a combination of hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin at certain levels translate to a survival rate 2.9 times higher than other patients. The study, though, crucially is a preliminary one, which means it has not undergone a rigorous peer-reviewed process. It's also an observational study, which means we're not comparing the same treatments given to one group to another receiving a placebo. The gold standard for which studies is a randomized double-blind study in which neither the patients nor the doctors know who is getting the treatment versus the placebo. That's the crucial point. The 2.9 times higher survival rate is not compared to those who didn't receive the treatment. It's compared to those who received less of the treatment. And as critics of the study have noted, there are other very valid reasons those who received less of the treatment might have had worse outcomes, including the severity of their cases. They stopped giving it to them when they went into respiratory arrest, and therefore only people who had a mild case got hydroxychloroquine. And therefore, all right, I mean, it's just dumb. Like, it's so dumb.
Big tech censored information about the origins, about hydroxychloroquine, and it appears your paper jumped on the bandwagon. Anything that Trump said, whether it was the origin or hydroxychloroquine or who could get it, who couldn't, who was...
That's not fair, because Newsweek came out with instructions on how to stick a light bulb up your ass and pour bleach in your lungs. And I followed it. I'm kidding. No, they didn't.
Most susceptible from about January, February through the entire summer leading up to November, the election. You guys appeared to just do everything negative against him, like most mainstream media. And now that he's out of office, I see these new articles saying hydroxy works. Maybe it was man-made. You see where I'm going with this, Fred?
Yeah, you're talking out of your ass. You're not seeing articles that say that. You're seeing one study, an observational study, and it still doesn't prove what you said. They stopped giving. It's people who got hydroxychloroquine. A big group of them went to respiratory arrest and died later. They also had lower doses of the virus.
Fred, it really makes me and millions of other Americans, sorry, pardon my French, pissed off that for months you guys reported one way.
Excuse me, pissed is German, yillen is French.
And the minute Orange Man's gone, you report another way. Now tell me you guys didn't do that, because that's the way it appears to me. And
that's because you're dumb, Danny Balls.
I've been doing this game about 26 years.
And it is a game.
You might have been doing it longer than me. But that's the way I see it.
26 years you've been on, and you're on Real America News? Dude.
Are you saying
I'm a hobbyist and I have more views than you?
I'm older than you are?
Yeah, maybe.
No, we're not going to handle it. Well, I mean, what you're saying can't be true because I think the reason you had me on this show is because we reported in April 2020 that the lab leak was a possibility. So you can't now say that we changed our mind because we hated Trump. I mean, we didn't.
No, I'm looking at all the articles you did in between, and I'm bringing all the other articles up where you badmouthed him and said that he was horrible. You ran a poll that said he did a horrible job, according.
Yeah, but the polls, I mean, they did the poll. And then they reported the poll.
To the 1,700 people you called, you did stuff saying that he was putting up misinformation about hydroxy. It works. They're now saying it. By the way, the Fauci emails, that virologist said the same thing. Hey, hydroxy's looking pretty good. That
wasn't a virologist. That was a physicist.
In January. And the emails we just got the other day. Yeah, hydroxy looks good.
There has been more money spent on randomized controlled trials on hydroxychloroquine than are warranted by any of the facts, and it hasn't passed muster. It doesn't work.
Really?
And the fact that you got sick, took hydroxychloroquine and got better does not prove that it works.
So I've had doctors on this program from Texas to Arizona to California and elsewhere, Fred, who have had 1,200.
Who have been self-selected out as only being pro-hydroxychloroquine.
2,000, 3,000. Matter of fact, one doc's about to show a report with 5,000 patients. Add them all up, it's tens of thousands who've done a cocktail of zinc, hydroxy, ivermectin, and other types of pharmaceutical drugs which have been around for decades. And they've all had a fast recovery rate. Some were even on ventilators, got off, no problem, a lot better. So you're telling me all those doctors with years of experience and thousands of patients that have used it are wrong. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
We got 600,000 dead, yeah.
Yes, I am saying that having
that's your opinion.
Having thousands of anecdotes.
And you got your medical degree where, Fred?
A randomized clinical trial. Do you have a medical degree?
No, that's why I bring the professionals on, and I ask them to show their clinical trials where they've treated thousands of patients since last April, and they prove it with their patients.
I know I've heard those stories, and unless
they're stories to you guys at Newsweek, right? Not facts.
Unless the trials are controlled, where there's a controlled setting where you can compare how many people got better taking the drug and how many people got better taking a placebo, then you can't know. That's the standard of evidence in science, and that's not something I made up.
Let's go back to the origin thing. Let's go back to the origin.
Yeah, can we skip where I totally ate my own ass in front of you?
Because I love that everything these days from left-wing activist journalists, like folks at Newsweek, sorry.
Yeah, Newsweek's left-wing activists. Do you have any idea how many Jesus stories Newsweek does? Newsweek Jesus covers. I mean, in a lot of ways, Newsweek has been Jesus's own magazine. How Jesus Christ is here to stay. Newsweek special issue on Jesus. Follow Jesus. How Jesus became Christ. Jesus follows Jesus. Jesus goes to Washington. Jesus see Jesus. Rethinking the resurrection. Jesus see Jesus. Jesus follow Jesus. Jesus, and there's more Jesus and Jesus. So Newsweek has more like covers with Christ on it than almost any other like standard magazine you'd ever see. But I mean, honestly, if we're talking about the left and the paper that the left is pushing, and supposedly you have to understand, atheist Marxism is the marker of the left, according to these assholes. It's hardly doing a good job.
Sorry, Fred. Not saying you are, but some of your Newsweek counterparts definitely are. Everything is racist these days. Everything is racist. Not
everything, just you, Dan.
So you're saying that President Trump politicized?
I don't know that he's racist. He might just be a dipshit. Thank you, Brian. I'm certain it will. Thank you. Thank you for being a patron at all. I appreciate it. I can't wait we're having live shows again, and we're going to be announcing some sexy liberal shows in the fall and in the spring of next year. And I'm working out a thing where patrons will get in for free. You might have to buy your ticket and you get a refund, but we'll work it out because I don't want to stiff anybody else, but I want to allow my patrons to come. So we'll work that part of it out this fall. And then, of course, every Flapper show And then at the very least the Sunday shows, but pretty much any patron can come to a show with a guest anywhere I'm performing live. So at no matter what level you're at. So there you go.
And tried to blame the Chinese and use their race so that people wouldn't see that he wasn't doing a good job. That's kind of what you said a minute ago, correct?
I do think the fact that the racist tropes were being called in this instance,
like Kung Flu,
had something to do with the reluctance of journalists to cover the story.
Okay.
Because I think they were reluctant to jump to they were.
What do we call the new strains, by the way? Do we name the new strains where they come from? And where'd the Spanish flu come that we've been calling it the Spanish flu for 90, how many years? I'm just wondering if it's okay to call an origin where it comes from of a virus.
Well, in that case, it was Kansas, right? Was the argument that it should be the Kansas flu. The Spanish flu should be called the Kansas flu. That's the story. But they brought it back from Spain, World War I, what have you. In theory, yeah, soldiers. Aw, we have a kitty. Hold on, kitty break, kitten break. Hi, this one. Hi, you. How are you? How are you, little one? How are you, little one? Yes, you are. Yes, that's a fan. It's not on right now. You look, just want. There's everything to chew on. Yes, just chew on everything. That's what you're gonna do. This is Cherry, everybody. She's adoptable. Reach out. Reach out to me on Twitter. She's adorable and she's a cuddler and she purrs like a little motor. Yeah, you are. You're a sweetie. Do you want? Yeah, you just want to climb all over everything, don't you? There you go. There you go. Hi. Yeah. There you go. There you go, my love. She's a sweetheart. Aw. We needed that, I think. We needed a kitty break, I think. All right, here we go. Let's see.
Of a virus. Because it's racist if he did it.
Well, it's racist when you say Kung Flu. It's not racist to say the virus came from China. Do you understand the difference? Do you have any capability?
A virologist, I don't know. I mean, I don't name viruses.
That's my point, Fred.
It's SARS-CoV-2. It's COVID-19. We now name them based on their, like, you know, I mean, MERS is the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, right? Because of where it came from. SARS is the sudden acute respiratory syndrome. And COVID-19 is the result of SARS-CoV-2. That's how we talk about stuff. So that we don't attach it to people's race or the accidental geography. Because somebody lives in Wuhan and they work at a bow stand in the middle of this, of the block someplace, and suddenly it's their fucking fault.
It was only racist because Trump said it. That's what comes out of you guys' mouth.
No, Trump said Kung Flu. That's what made it racist. Because it's not that he's a low rent racist. He's basically a classist, but he's a punk.
That's what pisses us off so much. We still call the Spanish flu the Spanish flu. All the new strains we're calling from their origin, where they're coming from. Why is it racist for President Trump
to say Kung Flu?
To say the Chinese virus.
Because, well, that's a good example. You could call it the Wuhan, the Wu flu would be, it's just some people in China were calling it that, or even the CCP virus, which is what, I think Rudy Giuliani called it. But calling it the China flu, like the Spanish flu, is like calling it the Chinese flu when we have a lot of Chinese people who live in the United States, for example, or in Canada or anybody else everywhere else in the world who are ethnically Chinese but are Americans, for example. It's kind of a bigoted, shitty thing to do.
When it came from friggin' China.
Because we didn't call it the Spaniard flu.
I am not going to call Trump a racist, okay?
Well, you almost...
I will. I think he's a racist. I mean, remember the whole story about him going into the accounting firm and there were black accountants there and he said he didn't want black people counting his money. He wanted the guys with the small hats.
There, when you referred to it earlier in his handling.
No, but when someone uses tropes, racist tropes, like calling out the Chinese for starting this pandemic.
He was calling out the Chinese government and said the Chinese were responsible. They covered it up. It was most likely leaked from a lab, which now today we're learning is probably factual. Okay? Thanks to Fauci's emails.
You're asking me why some journalists were reluctant to cover the story, and that's one reason they were reluctant to cover the story. That's a fact.
You guys weren't reluctant, Fred. You weren't reluctant. You were just omitting things, okay? You were admitting things Trump would say and cover what you wanted to.
They were admitting or omitting.
For a narrative. This is what the left does. This is what the mainstream media does. This is why One America the news is so important, Fred.
Yeah, it's very important.
Because
that's why you've been doing this for 26 years. And even with my audio problems, my graphics package is better than yours is. And I made it myself.
We, and only a couple others, are the only ones asking all the questions, not some. And
I have a question. I do have a question. Why is the name of your show Eel Eric? Because this is their framing. You don't have another shot when you move to the thing, because you're just sitting in front of a screen, right? Is that how you run the show? God damn it.
And omitting shit because we're trying to push it.
What? I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, you're what now? What?
What you wanted to for a narrative. This is what the left does. This is what the mainstream media does. This is why One America News is so important, Fred. Because we, and only a couple others, are the only ones asking all the questions, not some, and omitting shit because we're trying to push.
Yeah, that I agree. OAN never omits shit. As a matter of fact, it makes up the bulk of their programming. My God, omitting shit. Like, doesn't this count as a meltdown most of the time? If you swear on your own show, it's your own show. Eel Erica.
To push a narrative. That's what the left does.
You're pushing a narrative right now. You're taking one study that's not a peer-reviewed blind study on hydroxychloroquine and anecdotal bullshit from people you know, and trying to push this idea that Trump was right, not that it's still a good idea. I mean, are you pushing hydroxychloroquine for SARS, for MERS? They're all from the same zone. It is not a spike protein specific treatment. So is it now the position of Real America with Danny Balls and the OAN network that if you get any kind of respiratory illness, that hydroxychloroquine is magic juice with zinc and azithromycin? Is that's now the treatment standard? Because one unpeer reviewed study that was not a double blind study with a placebo group, none of that. And why is that? Why is that important to them? When have they ever come to the defense of a medical treatment of any sort ever before, except to fix a giant hole in the Trump-tanic? That's it. And I would call that a narrative, I think.
Did you call me in April 2020 to interview me about this?
I wasn't on the air yet, Fred. My show came on.
My show was created to help Trump win an election, and we did awesome. We were the balls.
On September 14th of...
Oh, yeah, I've got to jump into the QAF thing. Thank you for reminding me. I got to jump over there. I got to sign out. It's 5:03. I thought the audio got me through. I got to go. I'm signing off. I'll talk to you guys later.